myself out.
I am afraid of...
I'm terrified and paralyzed by...
I am deathly afraid of...
Welcome to the Sum of All Fears podcast with your host, me, Ryan Perio. Hello and welcome to the Sum of All Fears podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Perio. This week, my guest is Andrew Davis, all the way up in the Northeast in Connecticut at the moment. Andrew is going for a certification in accessibility documents for people with disabilities that may not allow them to view a website. So he has to make sure that websites are up to a certain standard so that those people can actually access and review those sites. So it's a fun conversation. We talk about finances and his fear of coming into of wasting a large amount of money, which is, I think, everyone's fear. Like, if you were to all of a sudden come into a large sum of money, how would you save and protect it from possible loss? And so we talk a lot about the stock market and crypto and things like that. And then we get into the conversation about his podcasting. So let's get into that interview right now with Andrew Davis. All right. My guest this week is Andrew Davis. Andrew is working on a certification with documents. And so he is hoping that goes through and then he can pursue a document, I guess, online document certification required job where you, I guess, stay at digital storage and things like that.
Something like that, dealing with accessibility and helping people in the digital space. And my fingers are crossed, everybody, that I passed that test because I don't know yet. I don't know. I got 3 more weeks of waiting and it's a little scary. Ooh,
that is a long wait. That is a long, we'll get back to you. Give us a month. I need money too, it's not, you think I'm just let me just sit back in my mansion and just wait for your 3-week turnaround. But it's interesting.
Oh, I wish, because if that was the case, I'd be on a beach chilling out. It'd be great.
You say accessibility, and it's very interesting because I was doing a comedy show this weekend, and one of the guys I talked to worked for he was in Fort Worth. It was in Fort Worth there, and they have a printing money, the, I guess, Department of Printing, and that prints paper money. And he was talking about how the $100 bill, they have to come up with a way physically on the $100 bill for a blind person to know that's 100. That's what they kind of have been. I guess that's their struggle, is that they are trying to tactily make that. And so it's very, we had discussed maybe that it's, a digital currency space or something like that we have some sort of either handheld reader or something that allows them to not be handed just a paper with the same tackiness on it that allows them to just walk out.
That's so interesting because one of the things, and it actually came up on the test, and I don't know if I should be saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that when we changed the money around in the U.S., now that the $100 has that strip in it, that's sort of like a holographic strip, it actually made money more secure.
Yeah.
But it also made it more accessible because now it's clear. Now it has distinguishing features. So if you're blurry or you're groggy in the morning, you can now tell what's a $100 bill, what's a 20, what's a 1, what's a 5, because they actually made it distinct. And that was not what the U.S. government wanted to do. That was completely by accident. And it's a very cool thing when that happens. And it proves that accessibility can actually be beneficial to everybody. Mm-hmm. And so it's a very cool thing. And I did not know that. But now that I looked at 100 and, I'm like, oh, snap, that actually makes sense. It's kind of cool.
So what made you, I guess, pursue this document accessibility and things like that? Is it just something that was interesting to you, or is it a personal venture?
So I kind of just fell into it where I was looking for stuff, and then there was a certification sort of hybrid class that came up, and I applied. I got in, and obviously I'm in the digital space doing a lot of podcast stuff. I'm building out my own class to some degree on a particular topic dealing with comic books. And I said, hey, you know what is, why not? You know, I was coming off of DC and now I'm in Connecticut, and well, I would like to work. I need a job, and I don't want to go back to DC anytime soon, because while I love Washington, DC, it is not for me. It is a very different environment. It is a very competitive environment. It is a brutal, cutthroat environment. And I just think this job and doing document accessibility is going to be calmer, easier. Nobody's going to yell at me if you don't do something the right way. And it's not life and death, and it's not 16-hour days. So kind of fell into it. And I think it's something I could do for the next 40 to 50 years, easy. And just make some good money at it too. And who knows, maybe I'll be working out of college and I'll get my master's for free.
Yeah. It seems like such a niche like industry too, that if you could get really good at it, that you could maybe like help others, like either train or keynote speak on it, you know, like what your observations and advancements in it could be.
Yeah, it's a really cool area to be in. And one of the things is that there's a lot of money that could actually be made in it too. One of the cool things about it is that there's a section in the United States government called Section 508. So all these companies that have $1 billion contracts with the United States government need to be, if they deal directly with the government, so they have to be accessible. Those companies' websites have to be accessible. Otherwise, they are not allowed to submit. So there's just a huge business for it. And there are companies that will pay people millions of dollars if their website is not accessible. Because when you're bidding on a $10 billion contract, what's $6 million to make your website accessible? And so people think that, you know, the real money's working out of college. No. The real money is working for a company like Raytheon or Amazon wants a government contract. Their website's got to be accessible. And if they want the money and the government's money, there you go. So it's a very cool field to be in, and it's endless, and it's only getting bigger now. And so jump on the bandwagon and run with it is what I say. So
when you say accessible, like, I guess, what does that mean? Does it mean that it's not a secured site at any kind of place, or is that a...
So accessibility is that there's different disabilities out there. Somebody might have low vision, for instance, and so they have a hard time seeing a website. And so the website needs to be made readily available that a screen reader, like a software like JAWS, which reads the text on the screen. So it reads that, and if it's not properly tagged, it's not going to work. Or it could be that you put a link that says click here. That doesn't do me. I can see, and I'm presuming you can see, correct?
Yes.
So if somebody's blind and something says click here, they don't know what that link is, you know, and so you might have to modify it. Instead of saying click here, go to, you know, my favorite wrestler is John Cena's profile, you know, and then now that person knows where it is. Or what happens when a blind person sees an image, that image needs to be described to them. And so that's just one thing. Or conversely, in podcasting, you know, transcripts and providing a transcript of the entire interview, that's an accessibility thing. Now, before anybody gets freaked out, if you are a sole proprietor and you're doing it as a hobby and you don't have a certain thing, you do not need to have a transcript for your podcast because you're not a big corporation. Yeah. But if you're, you know, Amazon and you have the Amazon podcast and it's a company podcast, you're probably going to have a transcript. But I think you would want to have a transcript because don't you want as many people to see it? If I could afford transcripts for my episode, I would absolutely do it, but that's expensive. And so, and then there's stuff just like having it so like the font size on a website can be adjusted and made bigger. Also having it just so that maybe if you have a black and red background, you could change it to a white and black background. And then also now what they're doing is that companies like Forbes actually will allow you to hear the article. So you don't even have to, you know, do it. And I've done that plenty of time where I'm doing something on a different screen, but I want to hear what's going on a website. And so I click play, and it's like a 12-minute read, and it's great. And I don't even view that as accessibility. I just say, hey, you're making my life easier. So it's super interesting. And I am just like maybe 5% into this. And so I don't know everything, and it's fast, but there's like real money, and you can help people. And, you know, it's awesome. And I think I'm going to do good in it. I'm excited for it. And I don't really know what's going to happen next though in my life. So it's exciting. And it's terrifying.
But at the same time, if you do with your podcasting, like if you do get certified in it and you do get proficient in it, you could transcribe your own, maybe find a way to transcribe your own podcasts.
So what I'm betting on, and this is what I want Facebook to do. Facebook does transcripts, and they do auto captions, and you could turn that on, and that's a great tool. What I would love is that if they're already doing it, I don't think it would be that hard to write code, that Facebook can just store all of that. And then maybe it's not a perfect transcript, but it's close enough that somebody can get the gist of it. And then you can just put it in like a PDF. And I don't think that's that hard to do that, where if it's already picking up, and then what it can do from there is that data can be stored somewhere, and then it's just associated with somebody could just open it up right on Facebook. And I think that would actually be awesome. And I think that Facebook's going to eventually get there.
Yeah. If you can figure it out before somebody else, you could go to Facebook with it and say, here's your solution. And I know how to implement.
That's true. But I would want pure stock in the deal. Just pure stock. No payment. I just want my stock, because I know that the stock's going to go right up right after I sell it to Facebook, you know, and I want them to just pay my trip there and back, keep me in Cali for like 3 nights, and I'll have a great time. And I'll go say hi to Larry Page, and it'll be great. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you can negotiate, you know, again, if they want it bad enough, they'll meet your whatever demands you have. Or if you want a lifetime position, you know, until I decide to retire, you know, I want to be.
No, my demands are easy. I just want a Frappuccino every morning.
Okay.
Caramel, a shot of espresso.
Yeah. You just want to watch the stock price go up and up.
I for the 3 days I'm there, I'm very easy. I just want my Frappuccino in the morning. You know, I'm not a hard negotiator. I'm an easy individual. You know, normal people in the negotiating deal, they're like, I need this and that. I'm like, just get me my little bacon Gouda egg sandwich, my Frappuccino. Wake me up at like 10:30. We'll start the meeting at 11:30. I'll be out of your hair in 3 days. And then I don't want anything to do with you guys ever again after I have my shares. But if you miss one day of my Frappuccino, that deal's off.
Okay.
I'm going to Google next, because they won't screw it up. I promise.
Well, you're very, I guess, passionate about your Frappuccino would be another one way of looking at it. That's
I have canceled deals for things that are beneath this. So clearly I am prepared to walk away on a Frappuccino level. I want to make that crystal clear here.
And you say you can't do cutthroat, and here you are. You're not a
This is how we roll.
Okay.
This is how we roll. A $5.16 per day, the 3 days I'm in Cali selling this idea to Facebook. If they mess it up one day, that $1 million+ dollar is off the table. It's off the table. Most people would think that the issue would be negotiating the whole stock. No. It's the $5.16, everybody. That's all I'm going to say. It's the little things that count.
Okay. Well, and the little things are the things you remember. A lot of times, you know, there are big moments in your life, but I would say your fondest memories usually are the littler moments, like, you know, the littler things you do with your family, or, you know, little trips here and there, not the big trip to Disney World, or, you know, the little thing that happened while you're at Disney World.
I mean, in all seriousness, I would not break a deal over $5.16. It would be $5.17. I just want to make that crystal clear. But no, I agree. It's the little things that matter, and not the big things. And every lesson in my life has been a little lesson that has actually helped me and has made me smarter, better, and more understanding of things, because the little things add up, and the little things do matter tremendously.
So How did you come to decide to live in Connecticut? Is there family there? Is there home ties there that brought you back, or you just?
Well, it was a very easy choice. I moved out of DC,
Mm-hmm.
and I was sort of running out of money, and my rent in DC was $2,500 a month, and money only lasts so long
Yes.
when you don't have a job. And well, my parents moved to Connecticut, and I don't have to pay rent here, so it was easy. And
Okay.
just so happens that all my friends live 30 minutes away,
What?
and so all my friends, we all grew up in New York.
Okay.
And then all my friends moved to Connecticut within, I think, a year and a half before my parents moved. And it was one of those crazy circumstances where we all ended up 30 minutes away.
Mhm.
So us hanging out is only a 10-minute extra commute than where we all grew up. And it's kind of crazy. It's just a crazy world. So everything worked out,
Mhm.
I guess. And I'm not paying $2,500 a month.
Correct.
So that's a lot of money, everybody. That's a lot of money when you think about it.
Yeah, that's 2.5 of my months of rent here. So I totally get that. Like that's always been my big fear of like losing my day job is like the bill pay, and then just the no longer anything coming in, and just trying to do the broke math of how much money can I afford to do here, how can I survive?
Oh, I've been there. No question about it, where I have made a lot of money stretch out.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just say I know how to make $100 extremely elastic like a rubber band.
Yeah.
And it's not fun. But moving forward in my life, I'm going to make more money stretch out in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And people are going to be like, you're crazy. You know, you got X amount of money and you're crazy. And the answer is probably, yeah, a little bit. But you know, it's been a long journey to get to even that stage. And a lot of pain, a lot of fear, a lot of complicated stuff going on. And definitely something that I think people, you know, it's a good thing to go through.
Yes.
When you don't have any money and you're just trying to make, you know, your rent and trying to get over a hump and trying to say, hey, can I buy a 6-pack of beer? And there were, you know, weeks where I couldn't do that. And it sounds little small, but, you know, when you want to open up a cold one and you can't afford it, you know.
Oh, it's everything. Like and it's you know, just those, it's the traumatizing things of losing a job and then going through the hiring process and having your ego bruised by, you know, interviewer after interviewer, as, you know, they're like, you know, we decide to go with someone else, or, you know, we don't really think you're a good fit, or, you know, just hearing that over and over while you just kind of, you know, sit on your hands and hope one of them, you know, you feel like the interview went well and you're hoping, and then you just get that, you know, either the email, now it used to be a phone call that said, hey, you know, we're sorry, we're going to go with somebody else. But now it's just like even just an email that says, hey, you know, thanks for hiring. Unfortunately, you know, we are pursuing other.
So I'll talk about that because it's super interesting. So my contract ended, so I didn't get fired.
Mm-hmm.
My contract ended where I was working. In the process, because I've been in transition for about 18 months, you know, one of the things is that I've sent out like 250, 260 job applications. I've gotten maybe 10 interviews. And then, you know, obviously this program was paying me for certification study and class time and slight work time. Is like a hybrid model. And that's really helpful, but it's not a lot of money either.
Mm-hmm. And
so, you know, I know exactly. And now I'm going to be back in that process. I was working on my resume today, and, you know, but I'm getting up, I'm getting aggressive, and you know what it is? I'm hoping for the best, but I also am smart enough that I'm looking at where I have a roof over my head. You know, obviously my parents aren't charging me rent, but I don't want to be in my parents' house anymore. I'm 29. It's time to get out. And I want my privacy, and I want to do my own stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm smart enough that I might extend my stay till next January.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bunch of reasons why. Money is money. And if I could save myself an extra $25,000, that means, because I might want to not go back to renting, but to going to buying a place. So that's a big difference as well. And I'm anticipating things that are going to get really messed up in the U.S. in the next 6 to 9 months.
Who knows? There's always a panic, but at the same time, I feel like there's so much money in so many different places that it's like, oh, it's almost like you're finding stacks of money in couch cushions sometimes, or at least that's what it feels like. It's like, oh, we found.
Well, I know where there's a lot of money, but it's not legal to talk about how to get it. So there we go.
Okay. Fair enough. So are you thinking about settling down in Connecticut? Like, since all your friends and your family's there, are you like looking to set root maybe in Connecticut, or do you want to go back to New York? Or
so right now, my goal is to stay in Connecticut. The only time I would leave Connecticut is if I started a company and I was making over 10 million in revenue.
Yeah.
And then you go to a place like Tennessee, Texas, Florida, because there's tax advantages to go to those places. But as far as I'm concerned right now, definitely staying in Connecticut. If all my friends are around here, and a few of my friends are still in New York, not everybody's in Connecticut, but a good majority of my friends from the 3rd grade onward for all these years are 30 minutes away. At this stage, I want to be close to my friends. If I'm an hour away from my friends, I could still see them a lot more than being 6 hours away. And so it's a big difference. It changes the way you function. And there's also certain opportunities, in Connecticut. And let's just say that, I'm in Bethel, Connecticut. If I move to Stamford, there's a lot of pretty girls in Stamford. Okay. So that's a good reason to move to Stamford, everybody.
Fair enough.
There's a lot of pretty girls in Stamford.
It's a 29-year-old answer. At 45, I'm 45, so it pretty girls, but at the same time, it's like I'm a little old to be, it's like, oh, but I totally.
Hey, age is just a number after 18.
True. So you were talking about finances, which is a kind of an interesting fear that you had about finances. Go ahead and tell people what you're afraid of.
Well, I'm afraid of 7, 8, 9, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
That was a given, everybody. No. One of the things that's very scary for me is that I came into some money, and it was a lot at the time, and my grandma passed away, and you come into about $15,000. I never had $15,000 before. I'm legitimately in my first semester of college, and all of a sudden I'm like, what do I do with this? Because I've never managed money before. And it's very scary because it's not the idea that I've worked and I was slightly invested in some very basic things. We're talking like $3,000. So $3,000 wasn't going to change my lifestyle, but all of a sudden 15,000 can. And now it's like, what do I do with this? Because this is grandma's money. Another term for it is that it's God's money. And those terms, and you could call me Dave Ramsey, however you want to choose it. I'm not very religious, but it's this idea that it's sacred money and I don't want to screw it up. And so for a while, I didn't touch that money because I didn't know what to do with it. And I'm like, am I going to mess this up? What do I have to do? Because I don't want to put it into just something that I'm gaining like 0.03% on. But that's a big fear because markets are volatile. Markets go up, they go down, and it's just like you could put something into something very dangerous and you could lose it all.
Yeah.
But my grandma just gave it to me as an inheritance, and she worked her ass off for it. Hopefully I could say that word on this. But it's this idea that I'm now so there's a lot of paralyzing fear that obviously she's dead, so she can't feel, but it's that mentality where you're like, I need to be very, very understanding and intentional with what I'm doing. And it's very complicated. And so that's kind of the fear I had. And then the fear then evolves into, okay, I'm now making sacrifices, which is what I was doing when I was working, that I budgeted out components of my budget. So you didn't see me in the bar on Friday night spending $100. You maybe saw me once every 2 months in a bar spending $100, because I was then proportionally investing my money in the stock market. And there's that fear too, saying, am I making the right choice? Am I making the right sacrifice? And is this thing growing? And then obviously 2020 was a third fear for me, where my portfolio dropped by 37% in a matter in February. And so now you're like, oh my God, what do I do? I didn't sell anything and I'm doing better than ever. But that's also a big fear. Is there going to be a big crash coming? And is it going to come back? And so that's all my fears with money, is that it comes down to choice, and it's that certain money is sacred, certain money has been earned, certain money has come at a great expense. And then how do you handle that money? And it's very paralyzing, because sometimes if you lose $100, that's not the end of the world, but you lose 15,000, or you lost, $1,800 every 2 months, it gets very upsetting, and then it's demoralizing. And then, it's the idea that if it doesn't come back, or you lost that money, you're not going to come back to the market. And then are you going to be financially stable and ready for, to grow as a person and be ready for retirement? So it's all that stuff. And, it's very paralyzing. And when you really dive into this, it becomes complicated. So that's a lot of where my fears come from.
Yeah. And I feel like that's everybody's fear. I think that, as somebody that dabbles on Robinhood and stuff, it's like you can't get to, I can't look at this too much. Otherwise, it gets to a point where I'm like, okay, I'll just invest in certain stocks and let the chips fall where they may, but I'm only investing like $5 here and there. It's not, like you're like a large sum like that, because again, a percentage point of $1, like 10 cents of $1 is just 10 cents, but $100 is $1. $1,000 is $10. And then $10,000, that's like, $100 is just 1%. And if it goes up more than that, then you're looking at hundreds of dollars, like 5%, $500 gone.
When you start having 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, and a market goes down 30%, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of sways. I mean, I have cryptocurrency, and I don't know if you know what the crypto market's doing, but boy, I mean, Ethereum is taking a bloodbath, and it is scary. I'm not selling it. And obviously, I don't fear as much as I used to, and I'm a lot more invested in the market. And obviously, I've overcome a lot of the fears that I have, but it is still very scary. Like, I don't pretend that this is not, I understand what I'm doing. I'm intentional, but the U.S. market has always done well. The S&P 500, which is the top 500 stocks in the United States, it's an index fund, and different companies mimic it, and they have their own versions of it. So they might copy 97% of it and then mix the other 3% they want in there because they think it's better for their clients. Yeah. But it's this idea that there's nothing wrong with that. It's almost an exact copy. If they put in 15 stocks they want that are not in what the index is, it's not going to affect it one way or the other overall.
Yeah.
But it's this idea that, for me, with that, that's risk averting, but the S&P in the last 70 years has always done well over time. And I think, in the last 10 years, it's done like 13.6, I want to say, percent wise. And it averages, I think, either 7 to 9% a year on average over time. And it's always done well. I think for the most part, in the last 70 years, it's done like 7.2% every single year. But just because it's done that in the past doesn't mean it's not it can do it in the future, or it cannot. There is no guarantee. And that's also another thing, because you're investing and you're taking a risk. And so it's very interesting with all that. But, obviously, if it's worked for the last 70 years, I don't see why it's going to not stop working now, if that makes any sense.
True. I feel people would just, I think a lot of people think there's a balloon effect, and that you keep inflating it to the point that it's just unsustainable. And then that's when you have the huge, like, what was it, in 08, where we had like the 200-point losses and stuff like that on the stock market, just because. And I think with day trading and things like that, that maybe there's even more volatility because you have maybe a broker who's more steady-handed and won't sell, where you have Johnny retiree, sitting there watching his E-Trade account or Robinhood, seeing it go down and all panically, sell. And
because that I don't know how much you know about the stock market. So I think on Friday it was pretty bad, where there's big sell-offs coming off, and I'm not selling anything I have in my portfolio. I have 20 stocks. I have some of the S&P. I have some mutual funds. And obviously, I'm not going to tell you anything beyond the S&P 500 because that's already diversified enough. But one of the things that I'm just holding on. And for me, I am long-term. So it doesn't matter what a stock is doing. And that also helps to deal with my fears in this area, is that I am long-term. So I am not a day trader. Now, if there's a stock, so I bought Chico's and I'm out of Chico's now. I bought that stock significantly lower and I had like a 300% rate of return and I got out of it. But that was an 8-month position and it served me well. And I have no problem saying, look, I've reached a certain barrier and I have so much gains on this that this wasn't a long-term play. But we're talking under $1,000.
Yeah.
So if I bought something at 200 and went up to 1,000, but then I also moved that money into just a different stock. So I don't take things out of my brokerage account. Also, though, I am a different investor, which also helps to reduce fears, which I'm a dividend investor. So every month, every quarter, I get dividends from my stocks, which helps me to want to hold on to them for years because they return capital to me that I can then do whatever I want with, or I could buy more shares with. And so now all of a sudden that changes the investing plan. And that's what also helps to break my fears as an individual, is that the way I'm getting my money back is through dividends.
Yeah.
I am not getting my money back through growth. So now I'm in a different bubble. If a stock is paying its dividend, what do I care if it's at $30 or $26, if it's paying me my 50 cents every quarter?
Yeah.
And that changes the way you have an attitude. And this is why I think some people don't understand that they have a very big fear about money. And this took me a long time to figure out, is how to do this and how to actually become a dividend investor. And then once I figured out a battle plan, I then had to go through building out a whole stock battle plan and building out different risk assessments. And I mean, we're talking probably 6-7 years of me actually figuring it out and doing what works for me. So this isn't,
an end all.
Tomorrow I just woke up, but I know the answer, guys.
Yeah.
No, this took a lot of experimentation and a lot of me going slow. And I'm now doing okay with it, but there's still that fear that maybe I'm completely wrong and maybe I've been lucky this entire time and maybe there's no skill here. And that could very well be the case. But I do think that there has to be some skill, I feel. Yeah. At this point, but I could be wrong. I'm the first person to say I'm wrong about anything.
Well, at the end, I think it's customizable to what you want. Again, you're 29, so you have time, before you reach retirement age. You have 34 years or so of still working age before you can.
That's another thing too, is that you're 45. You have less room to screw up.
Yes.
And that's another fear as well.
I've already screwed up.
But it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
You're a comedian, so I'm a podcaster. We're both screwed.
Yeah.
I just have more time to continue my screw up on Earth than you do, but that's not the point here. I have a wicked sense of humor.
Same.
I'm a very dark, brooding person, but the whole thing is that I understand that if I mess up, before my retirement age, I have 36 years minimum to fix the problem.
Mhm.
You have a little bit less time. You got about 20.
Mhm.
So the whole thing is that's another fear, is that people maybe have not been, and I hate to use, biblical position, but blessed, I think is a really good way to put it, where I've been blessed. I've, figured it out at a younger age, which gives me more time to build wealth. And also gives me more time where if I have a bad year, I could bounce back. So people sometimes don't figure out what I figured out until they're in their 40s.
Mhm.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because hopefully you're making more money in your 40s than you made in your 20s. But even still, you have less time.
Yeah.
And also you have less ability that if you make a mistake to fix that mistake. Yeah. And so that's something that I also think with money is very alarming. And then also all these people who are supposed to help people with money are bad.
Yeah.
Susie Orman did not help a soul. She did a lot of damage to people. And that's another thing that I think creates fear too, is that there's all these people who seem credible, seem really good, and they're not helpful. They're not helping you, and there's all these gurus out there. And that doesn't help, because then you get in their system, you pay $1,000 and you realize really quickly within a year and a half that doesn't help you. Or a place like, WeTrade, or I forget, like Tim Sykes, those penny stocks, like that stuff also doesn't help, because you get burned and then you're like, I don't want to get burned again.
Yeah.
And that's another problem too with all this. And that creates a lot of fear. I was fortunate that I picked up certain materials
Mm-hmm.
that gave me insight. I've read Rule 1 Investing. I've read, I think it's Ben Graham's book, which is what Buffett is based off of. Phil Town, who follows Buffett's strategy. I listen to people like Kevin O'Leary, Peter Schiff, Dave Ramsey's very good if you're terrified.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the people that I listen to have been very helpful, but I listen to where Peter Schiff does not agree with Dave Ramsey, and Dave Ramsey does not agree with Kevin O'Leary, and Ben Graham doesn't agree with, some of them on other points. Yeah. And then I listen to some Bitcoin and crypto advocates, and then that's how I get my entire circle. But I'm not listening to Susie Orman, or some Uncle Joe on YouTube.
Yeah. And it's fascinating. And again, you pull from various sources. You don't want one person telling you. It's best to make an educated decision by playing the law of averages. If you're listening to 8 people and 5 of those 8 tell you this is a stock I would invest in, maybe you do some more research on that stock. You don't just listen to one person that may say it's a good stock and be like, I don't trust it, and then you have to, especially with money, you can't just let one person, because then, they have control over you. It's almost like,
if your friend says, hey, throw $100 in Ethereum,
mm-hmm.
that's perfectly fine. You could take $100 gamble on Ethereum.
Yep.
My friend did that to me, and clearly it's been beneficial.
Yep.
If I lost $100 to appease my friend, you know what he'll do? He'll buy the next 2 beers at the bar the next week, and it's a wash. Or he'll say, you know what, man, we're going out to dinner. It's on me. I screwed up. That's different than when you're going down the road and you're really making real sizable investments. But if your friend says, I want you to throw $100 into this stock every single week, you're going to have to start doing some serious research on it. Or a stock just had an IPO, you're going to have to do some serious research on this stuff. And, that's something that I think people need to fully understand. And you need to really do your homework on this. And it's very important, I think, that people need to, and if you have fear, the saying is that if you ever watch something on TV, so if you ever watch Shark Tank,
mm-hmm.
this is the best example. I promise it's going to make sense to everybody. If you look at an evaluation, you're like, I don't see why that company was valued at X. That probably means that you're missing some information. And the reason how this relates to fear is if you have fear with something, it's probably because something is telling you something is slightly off,
mm-hmm.
or you don't have a certain amount of information available to you that is causing you to have an uncertainty.
Correct.
And you are naturally curious and questioning why you don't have this uncertainty, and you need to go figure out that question. Now, it could very well be that I'm very skeptical of NFTs, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I know why I'm skeptical of NFTs, because I'm looking at the .com bubble and I think it's the exact same thing. I think it's tulips.
Yeah.
But I also have another problem with NFTs, where is it built on the chain, or is the link on top of the chain to the image?
Mm-hmm.
And that's my question. And I don't have a straight answer on that question right now. And it's a big debate. And that's why I have a rational fear
Mm-hmm.
of it, and I'm staying away. Cryptocurrencies, on the other hand, I understand certain cryptocurrencies, and I don't have a rational fear, even though one of them just got cut down by 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the difference between fear, is that I have a lot of questions about that NFT thing, and that's why I'm fearful of it.
Yeah.
And I understand it. And so if you're fearful, saying, I don't want to be in the stock market, you should ask yourself a lot of questions. And it's okay if you don't have the answers, because if you don't have the answer, that means you're at least thinking, or conversely, maybe you don't even know where to look for the answer. And you have to ask the question, where can I look for solid sound advice? And then that'll throw into something else.
Yeah. Not only solid sound advice, but like broken down and explain it in a way you understand. Don't try to read a company portfolio, maybe, because some of that stuff, I mean, you look at it and it gets, because I've invested in a couple of IPOs just out of a gas, it's like there's this company who's coming out. It's like their portfolio looks really nice. Some of the things it's like, okay, but man, you start getting into it and it's like, here's the projection. Here's what we think. It's a lot of reading. And if you're not careful, you could miss something that's, and you have to know what to read. You don't have to read everything. You can if that's your hobby, but you have to know what sections should, you should basically look at and be like, check. But it is investing is it's a humongous fear, because it's one of those things of, again, you're putting maybe not just your money. What if you're the head of the family and it's you and your kids' money? Like it's your kids' college fund. It's you and your wife's retirement. It's your grandkids' future. That's a lot of.
I am very, very meticulous with what I invest in, and look, there are certain companies that are always going to be great. So Apple is a good one, where Apple, Microsoft, there's a concept of just blue chip stock investing, where there are companies that are going to be here for the next 50 years and you cannot screw up on. I mean, you could screw up anything. I shouldn't say that. I'm going to correct myself here, but it's hard to screw up Apple. It's hard to screw up Microsoft. Now, you might not pull a Tesla out, but or Coca-Cola, you're not going to screw up those investing means. But also what I say is that, look, most people are moronic at investing. I invest in a lot of index funds too. And the reason why is that the S&P 500, what it is? I'll take an 8% gain on average over the course of my investment career. And if the statement is that if you throw $100 into the S&P every month from the ages of 25 to 65, you will be worth $1.1 to $1.3 million by the time you retire. That is amazing. With the growth, the dividends, and everything that happens in between, you're buying a bunch of shares and your income averaging in, essentially, you're going to be worth a lot of money. So, and what is the saying is that it's not that hard to become a millionaire in the United States.
Yeah.
It's not. And the greatest investment tool that people have is their 401k at work, because a lot of people don't have control over their 401k. I've looked at the government 401ks plan. They have, I think, like 15 or 16 options. And the way that people, if you work for the federal government, you should start for the first 20 years, you should be in a very heavy, aggressive investment fund. Then you should slowly tame that thing downward. And by the time you're in your last 4 years, you should put all the money that you made in U.S. Treasury bonds.
Yeah.
that you can do. And so your last 3 years, you're going to be contributing and you're locking in only a guaranteed 2% on your money. But guess what? You made all your money in the 35 or 40 years you work for the federal government.
Yeah.
So that's what you should be doing. And investing isn't hard. But again, the federal government only gives you so many choices to do something with. But let's say you just go completely aggressive, you're going to be fine regardless. Because if you have time, but that's the thing is that you're not managing it. You can just control the risk tolerance.
Yeah.
And that's why the 401k is the greatest wealth building tool, not to shoot at Grant Cardone. But he says the 401k is a scam. Grant Cardone is full of shit on that.
Mm-hmm.
He is wrong. And he is statistically wrong on that because most people are terrified by investments. And if people weren't scared and they had the financial education, he would be more right. But he's wrong because people do not know how to manage their money. And it's very scary. It's a terrifying thing to do. It's a lot of responsibility. And when you take 80% of that away from somebody, they can handle that 20. And it's a very interesting thing. And so I understand that. I'm a manager and I spent a lot of time learning this. Mm-hmm. But I did start off being very scared. Yeah. Again, having $15,000, never managing money before, that's a big responsibility. And you're 18 years old and it's yours to do whatever you want. And I'm like, what do I do? I don't know what to do now. I had my father. He's a good investor. That helps. But I'm lucky because my father is a good investor and very helpful. Takes fear away, but still very terrifying. And a lot of ways, I didn't touch it for a good, 12 to 18 months, I think. I didn't do anything. It was just sitting in a bank account. It sounds weird. And then I can't explain that to anybody. And one of the reasons why I bring this up is that let's say that somebody is hearing this podcast and they're 42 and they've never asked their parents how much money they have. You'd be surprised when, people's parents die, how much money they have. And they're like, oh, snap, I'm going to be inheriting $800,000. What? Because, it's, and then what do you do then? That's even a crazier part because you're emotional and you now have a lot of money at your disposal. And you'd be surprised. There's plenty of people who are like, I thought my parents were broke ass poor. Mm-hmm. And they're worth $3 million and I'm getting 1.5. What do I do now? And there's all these calls into Dave Ramsey. And he's like, Dave, what do I do? And they don't know what to do. Yeah. And they've never managed money and they're making $65,000. And there's nothing wrong with making $65,000. Yeah. But they're like, I'm going to have $1.5 million and I don't know what to do, man. Help. And because that's even more paralyzing.
Yeah. Because the more you don't do with money, I guess, the more it's almost like losing. So if you just have it in a checking account.
If you have $1.5 million in a checking account and you do nothing with it, that's fine because you didn't lose anything.
Yeah.
When you lose something is that if you put it into the stock market and you don't know what you're doing, then you've lost it. Or if you put it into a CD for 2 years, you're like, I don't know what to do. I just lost my mom. I'm going to screw it up, and Dave Ramsey's not going to yell at you if you did that. If you put it into a naked option, which I don't even know what a naked option is, Dave Ramsey's going to yell at you. There's a series of moves that you can do that you won't lose. If you inherited $1.5 million and you paid off your $300,000 house, that's a great rate of return by definition. Mm-hmm. But if you don't know what to do, if you just leave it in the bank and you're like, I don't know what to do and I don't want to deal with it, there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually probably one of the best moves to be made. Yeah. Even though you're going to lose money on inflation, you're not losing a tremendous amount.
Yeah.
Because the only thing you lost was an opportunity gain.
Yeah.
Because once you enter the market, you can have a gain, neutral, or a loss. Okay. If you put your money in a bank account and in a savings account, you have neutral or gain. You do not. The loss is so minimal that it doesn't count.
Okay.
So that's something that's very important that I think people need to understand is that your loss on $1.5 million in a checking account is going to be legitimately $15,000 at the most, which is nothing. which is nothing. And that at the most. And I'm being very generous, assuming that that's how bad inflation is.
Yeah. I have my 401k, I think, set at 10, or it was 10 like the last few years, and now it's at 12% of my check to pull. And it's livable, and it's one of those things where my dad is a good saver like yours. I'm sure he just told you, you take it out before you get it in your hand. You never know it exists. And so it becomes like you amass a savings because you don't realize it's there, and you just ignore it and don't touch it.
So my dad is in his own business. He's an attorney. He's a sole practitioner. And so when he gets a check, he doesn't have a 401k. He's his own boss. He's a litigator, and he's a high earner. But he gets a check and he divides it into 4 components. It's bills, investing/saving, taxes, and then sort of a rainy day fund. And that's how it works. Now, my dad has a lot of nice toys. He's a big baseball fan. He buys autographed baseballs. And so obviously you have fun money and all sorts of cool stuff like that. But it's this idea that he makes as much money investing as he does as an attorney at this point. And my job, technically speaking, is I have 4 or 5 jobs right now. Obviously, I have a podcast, and that's, sponsorship proof. And I'm getting sponsors, I'm getting paid. I buy and sell comic books. I am an investor. And then when I get a regular day job, I'm going to have that. And then, that's kind of what I do. And then I do side hustle stuff. I do a few other side hustles, a few other consultation stuff. And so I have multiple streams of income. And so, but my investing, it is slowly, and it will slowly at a certain point exceed my traditional day job. But that doesn't mean you quit your day job.
Correct.
You don't have to have your main profession be investing. But if you do it right, your job as an investor should exceed your day job. Your day job should be what you live on. And that's what should fuel the secondary thing, because that's your second income stream. And I'm going to say this: you can make money in stocks, you can make money in crypto, you can make money in index funds, you can make money in bonds, you can make money in real estate. I don't really care how you make your money as an investor. I care that you understand it. And what breaks fear consistently is this idea that knowledge always breaks fear, and understanding it. And fear is a good thing, because fear makes you ask questions and justify your claims. And what I think is that I think people are very scared because they don't know where to turn to. They don't know where to look, and they don't know where to say, hey, I want these answers. And then also they're like, I don't want to make the sacrifice of going out with the boys for a risk. I know that if I go out with my friends and to the bar and we drop $100 every week, we're going to have a good time. But if I buy 4 shares of this company, it can go up, it can go down. It is returning me some capital, but that's a hard risk while I'm sitting at home, maybe watching television, or, maybe I go to the liquor store and pour myself a bottle by myself. But if you do that in your 20s and you suffer in your 20s, in your 40s, you'll own the bar, and you won't even want to go to your bar because all the cool kids are at your bar and you don't want to drink the liquor because they could outdrink you.
Yeah.
So you'll own the bar, but you won't go to the bar, and you'll be in your bed. Yeah. Because you'll be like, it's 9:00 already on a Friday. Boy, am I tired.
Yeah.
So you won't even want to go to the bar, but you'll own the bar, and you can go to the bar anytime you want and get whatever you want to drink because you didn't go to the bar in your 20s.
Yeah. So so I thank you for doing this. What is your podcast about? So what is or do you have more than one?
I have 2, technically 3, but the third one is shifting right now.
Okay.
Sorry. I think it's snowing outside, and I like the snow. It distracts me. So my first one is called Pop Anime Comics Lounge, and that is on iTunes and SoundCloud and anywhere where you can get your podcasts. And I interview professional wrestlers, comic creators, writers, artists, cosplayers, and voice actors. And I typically like to deal with people who are more industry professional and have bigger followings and are more professional. And then COVID hit, and I actually created a spin-off show out of my first show that deals with similar topics, but focuses more on people who are smaller and are indie comic creator people. And so I do a lot of indie comic creators, and that show is currently the only one that's active. Pop Anime Comics Lounge is on hiatus, but Conversations in Pop Culture is currently active. And yeah, I do a lot of interviews. In 2020, I did 90 episodes on Facebook Live and YouTube. So all live, bunch of guests, had a blast. One of my favorite guests is Jesse Flower. Jesse Flower is Toph from Avatar: The Last Airbender. So super cool. I'm thinking that I did Lisa Ortiz as well, who's the voice director for the Netflix Pokemon show. Really cool stuff in that regard. And then I've had a bunch of other cool people on my show in the wrestling world. And so in 2020, I did 90. In 2021, I did 172 interviews live.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a blast. And then this year, I am aiming to do possibly 200, but I think I'll wind up around maybe 180.
Okay.
So I'm trying to do about 15 to 16 a month, and I actually just funded on Kickstarter a few nights ago. My Kickstarter is still active, so you can go check that out. It's Conversations in Pop Culture on Kickstarter, or you can just type in Pop Anime Comics. That's good till January 31st. So I don't know if this is going to air before or after, but that's okay. I'm super stoked because I got funded regardless, and my goal was $750 on Kickstarter, and it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but when you're in between jobs, and now I don't have to worry about my StreamYard. I don't have to worry about, my Hootsuite. I have some cool stuff up there, and I got some cool swag that I'm going to be throwing up on eBay, like a metal card and some postcards, which I'll probably send. If somebody wants a postcard, I'll just probably send you the postcard with like a note if you ask for it, because I'm going to have a bunch of extra. But the metal cards are going to be up on my eBay store. And and I just love it. And my third podcast is going through a revision right now where I'm going to be talking about comic book investing. And so really going through basics, and it's a show, it's a YouTube / interview type hybrid show where we do some interview stuff on there and we talk about the industry and a variety of other stuff. And I just want to give people some free education on that stuff. But yeah, I love interviewing people, and I'm sponsored. Obviously the Kickstarter for the show is great. And then I also have sponsors for my show. And before anybody asks, I do want to make it crystal clear that I started that show, Conversations in Pop Culture, because professional wrestlers, voice actors, and indie comic people and cosplayers were getting screwed with conventions being shut down. And I never, ever thought I would ever get a sponsor. I was just asking for donations where somebody was like, hey, I'll pay you $15 because I want you to survive another month. And a few people did it, which helped tremendously. But for the first really 2 years of that, it was out of pocket, and I was super, super happy to do it. And sponsorships are a good thing, and they help. And very, very lucky. And that Kickstarter is a big deal for me. And absolutely, that's what I do. And so I'll tell you where the show can be found. So Conversations in Pop Culture can be found on my Facebook page, which is Pop Anime Comics, or it can be found on YouTube under Pop Anime Comics, and sometimes on Twitch. And if we reach 1,000 or get pretty close to 1,000, we're actually going to come to a podcast format. And so I don't know exactly how that's going to come out episode wise, but all the episodes are going to be up there, and that stuff's going to be free. The show's free to watch, and I usually shoot out on Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 7 p.m., 9 p.m. on Tuesday and on Wednesday. And occasionally we have guests randomly, but you can watch all that stuff on replay. And I'm having a blast doing it, and I'm making some money doing it, and my Kickstarter is funded. And who knows, maybe I'm just lucky.
Yeah. I mean, since you do comic book, what is your most valuable comic book in your possession? What is your Radioactive Man #1 if we go for Simpsons?
I have an Ultimate Fallout 4. Okay. So for those who don't know, that is the first appearance of Miles Morales from, Into the Spider-Verse. So that's his first appearance. And so that's a very expensive book, and it goes up, it goes down. At one point it was a $1,200 book. I think it's like a $400 book right now. And the reason why it's the most valuable is that I got it for free. So it's pure profit, and I have 2 of them. It technically is not, it's the most valuable because it's the most profit valuable. But the other few books that I have that are really cool is I have a Stan Lee, J. Scott Campbell signed set of Spider-Man 700 and Superior Spider-Man 1. The covers connect together, and it's graded. So it's actually authenticated by CGC, which is a grading company that witnessed the signature. J. Scott Campbell did the artwork on the book, and Stan Lee created Spider-Man. And so you have both of them signed on the same day. It's graded. They're the third highest grade, which is a 9.8, which is the top grade. Both of them are really great books. And that book on eBay is going for anywhere from, like $1,600 to like $3,500, depending on where it's signed, who's selling it, what people are paying for, and everything in between. And it's only going to increase in value because it's a very valuable book.
Yeah.
And so, but those are not my favorite books.
Yeah. It's a very unique piece, though, because it's a cover that connects to the other cover. So it's definitely a really...
It also had an extremely low print run. So I think there's maybe only like 1,000 or 1,200 of the set. And so I had 3 sets. I sold 1 set. I didn't have 3 sets graded. Three sets signed and graded. I had 3 sets graded. So I sold a non-signed set. And I sold that for about $385. So just the 2 books, and it was a 9.6 and a 9.8. I have another 9.8 and 9.8, and then I have my signed copy. So there's real money. So the 9.8s that are not signed by Stan Lee and J. Scott Campbell, that's like a $450 to $500 book set. Meanwhile, these books, just so before, I'll break down the economics. Stan Lee's signature before he passed away was $120. J. Scott Campbell's signature is $30. So that's $150. Grading is $30. So that's $180. And then the books themselves were $10. So we're talking about $190 per book is put into these books when they're all signed and done. Unsigned, getting a book graded is $20, and the book is $10. So for the pair, it's a $60 investment to pull out $500.
Yeah. So
that's how all this stuff works. So it's super, super cool stuff. And so I love it. They're fun to look at. And since there's so few of these books out there, when you throw them up and people are like, oh man, that's cool, you got that, I got one too. And then I was just speaking to somebody on Facebook, and we're going back and forth for like 40 comments just talking about comic books in this group. And it's a unique bond, and it's a really cool hobby, and there's real money to be made.
Especially now with the Miles Morales and everything, like really taken off with the Spider-Verse and everything. I think that's probably been like one of the, I would say, for me, as far as someone that doesn't have a lot of comic books but has watched a lot of Marvel movies, that's like that's probably the biggest comic book character in this century. Because
it's okay. It's okay. You're a comic book fan. It's all right. Everybody's a comic book fan. You do not have to be in comics. I'm an inclusive comic book guy. Yeah. I don't believe that you have to have a comic book to be a comic book fan.
Okay.
Some people do. I don't. I personally think that if you're like, hey, I like the movie, this is an awesome movie, I like Into the Spider-Verse, Netflix has it on their thing, I'm in. I want to go see certain movies. Now, I don't love everything that Marvel puts out, but again, I enjoy those movies.
Yeah.
You're a comic book fan. It's all right.
All right.
It's all good.
But yeah, I was just like, he's probably been the most impactful comic book character of, I would say, my generation. Like, as far as like alive, like there's been some comic book characters that have come out, like Spawn and things like that. But I would say, somebody that's really like, I would say they ignited like a comic book, I would say almost a renaissance with kids and stuff, is that Miles Morales is kind of really.
So did you know about the movie? One of the coolest things about that movie is that if you notice the progression of the movie, he is glitchy purposely throughout the entire movie. And as he's getting more and more and more experience and assuming the role of Spider-Man, he becomes less and less and less and less and less and non-glitchy at the very end of the movie. And that is something very, very, very cool about that movie that people do not pick up on. And it's also the different speed he operates compared to the other characters.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly he's catching up, and there's so much cool stuff. And it's awesome. And I'm super stoked for Into the Spider-Verse 2. I can't wait for it.
And
it's going to be great.
He may be into the regular Spider-Man because they with the Spider-Man No Way Home, they kind of opened the door to Miles Morales. Like they kind of hinted at it, like, so is, maybe there's a black, so I think they said that, maybe there's a Spider-Man where there's not white or something like that. Like
hey, I'm down for it.
Yeah. And I was like, they opened that door by having the other Spider-Mans like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield by calling it the, like the Spider-Verse and everything else, that you could turn that into canon with the movies. And then that would even, and they also referenced it. And was it the first Spider-Man that Donald Glover was in?
I think so. I
thought I saw a YouTube clip where he says "my cousin Miles," when he straps him to the thing, and he said something like "my cousin Miles," and so you might look that up on YouTube. You might deep dive into that, but I think somebody's like tried to start to, like, in YouTube, try to pull it out and say, maybe they are, going to pull Miles Morales into, the Spider-Man Venom saga and everything else to kind of go that route, because I think they said something like a Donald Glover's character when he's like trying to steal a car or whatever, or stuck to when he webs him to the trunk, that he's like, yeah, my cousin Miles or something like that. You're like my cousin Miles.
Yeah, no, it's they're doing something right, and it's going to be fun, and he's going to get a live action movie, and I'm not too sure who's going to play Miles Morales, but it's not going to be Michael B. Jordan. If Michael B. Jordan was a little bit younger, I think he could pull it off. But I think Michael B. Jordan at this point is a little too old to play Miles Morales. But, I don't know who they're going to find, but I hope they find somebody good. I got a feeling they will,
mm-hmm.
And it's going to be great. And I'm stoked for it. I mean, I'm excited. There's only a few key issues of Spider-Man you need. An Ultimate Fallout 4 is one of them, and you need a 121, which is when Peter snaps Gwen's neck. And I do want that book, but that book's a little bit out of my price range right now.
Yeah.
And a good 9.8 of that book is like 6,800 to like 8,800, depending.
Wow.
So that's a gift that instead that my wife will get me for like our 20th anniversary when I have a wife. Okay. That's like the type of gift that somebody gets you for your anniversary after being married for 20 years.
Yeah. And
they're like, we survived. Here you go.
Yeah. Well, I thank you again for doing this. Where can people find you on social media, Andrew? I know we pub the podcast and comic and all that, but if they wanted to get in touch with you.
So first off, if I owe you money, don't just end right here, please. But if I don't owe you money and you just want to say hi to me, obviously you can come bother me on Twitter at Pop Anime Comics. You can come bother me on Instagram at Pop Anime Comics. My Facebook messages are open at Pop Anime Comics on Facebook. I have a website, Pop Anime Comics. My email is andrew@popanimecomics.com. I check that once a week, so if I don't get back to you, don't take it personally. I try to get back to everybody. You might get a response a few days later. My DMs, though, on Twitter are open. My DMs on Instagram are open. Facebook is always open. So if you have questions about comics, podcasting, you just want to know more about investing, or you just want to know resources, I'm more than happy to point you in any direction. Also, if I don't answer you on Facebook, just bother me on Twitter, say, hey, I saw you on a podcast. I'm more likely to respond to you in that realm. So that's kind of everything. If you want to buy comics from me, I am Pop Anime Comics Collectibles on eBay. Okay. So I do have like 150 stuff up there, and I'm getting some new merch with a guest that I'm having on, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow. But I don't want to talk too much about it. It's a really big deal for me, and I'll be picking up some of his merch, and he's got a very unique style. So you'll be seeing some of that probably in about 3 months in my store. But yeah, if you just have any questions, those are the best places to reach me. And yeah, subscribe to this podcast, will you, everybody? And you should go do that. And I'm not being paid to say that, but seriously, go subscribe to this podcast because this is a lot of fun and I'm enjoying it. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for doing it. Well, we could do it again when you have another fear.
I mean, I would have fear of heights, but yeah. I don't think that's as fun as having a fear of money.
Yeah, but it's definitely like it only grows as people, again, because they don't have a bill paying or investing math class. You have calculus and all this stuff. They don't have anything. I wish the public schooling system would have something like a monetary math class that you could take somewhere between like your sophomore and junior year before you start the workforce to say, hey, this is money. This is what you can do with it. And, just kind of give them
agree.
Give them a roadmap, because 20-year-old Ryan paid his cable bill before he paid his electric bill and then just sat in a dark apartment for a month.
I will say this, and it's a very controversial statement, but I've made it before. If we had to pick between choosing reading literacy or financial literacy, we would pick financial literacy first. Mm-hmm. And that sounds like a crazy statement, but I don't think it is. Yeah. I think when you look at the gains and the lack of gains, financial literacy is a bigger problem than reading literacy will ever be. I don't think I love to read, and I could do without reading literacy. I really could. It would not be necessarily a fun life, but if we had to pick between what we were teaching and we had to make those hard decisions, financial literacy would be a better choice. And it sounds controversial, and I know exactly how it sounds. I said it on a podcast like 2 days ago, and I'm going to keep saying it. And I know that people are going to be pushing back at me on a lot of levels, but that's how I feel, and I'm willing to take some flack for it.
Yeah. Well, I wish you luck in your accessibility certification and all your comic book sales and everything else you got going on. Thanks again, Andrew. So that was Andrew. That was an amazing conversation. I learned a lot about money and savings and stocks and all kinds of things that I didn't even know. And I have a Robinhood account that is just barely limping along because I just put little pieces of money in there at a time. Nothing like too extreme so that I don't end up losing, which is a huge fear. Like, I can't imagine just losing all of your money and starting over. Especially at my age, like any age, it's bad. But in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, that's just devastating because you don't have the time frame to recover financially from some of these mistakes. So make sure you check out his podcast, Conversations in Pop Culture, as well as his other ones. And I hope he does some more money. Like, I would love for him to do like a money talk podcast and stuff like that, maybe to help people with finances. I thought it was very educational. As for me, I've been home around town cleaning, and with storms and everything else, I've had my plants inside. I've moved them back outside. Got shows coming up in February and in March, and so I'm excited. I got shows coming up. I'll be headlining the Comedy Arena in exactly a month from now, and March 11th and 12th. Come out to that. Should be a fun show. I'll have Scott Crisp and Mallory Davis on the bill. It should be a fantastic time. Also, if you like the show, leave a review wherever you can. 5-star review would be amazing. If you have feedback for the show, email me at somefearfans@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening to the Sum of All Fears podcast, and have a wonderful week. And now some thank yous for the folks that make this show possible. Thanks to Barry Whitewater for my art and graphics. You can follow him on Instagram at bwhiteh2o. Get it? H2O like water. You can also follow him on Facebook Music. A huge thank you to Gunnar Olsen for the wonderful music provided for this podcast. You can follow him on Instagram at gunbuns, that's GUNBUNS, as well as his website, gunnarolsen.net. Check out some of the samples that he has recorded. They're amazing. He's an amazing percussionist. If you want to follow the show, we've got a Facebook group, Sum of All Fears. Instagram, Twitter, you can find us at Some Fear Fans. If you have some feedback for the show, email me at somefearfans, SOMEFEARFANS @gmail.com. I'll be happy to take those into consideration. Also, if you'd like to be a guest, email me at somefearfans @gmail.com. We can try to iron out some details and get that settled in. Give us some feedback if on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave a review. It makes the show bigger, and it's not going anywhere. I'm going to record as many shows as I possibly can. If you want to follow me on social media, I am at Ryan Perrio. It's RyanPerrio on all social media platforms. You can follow me there, and you can check me out at ryanperrio.com, my website. I'll try to list upcoming shows there as well. It's been kind of spotty because as soon as I set it up, that's when the pandemic happened, and everything's kind of just in a holding pattern. Thanks again for listening to the Sum of All Fears podcast. Next week, we'll have another guest with another fear. Thanks for listening.